As we continue to inch closer to the NFL draft, this situation and story just isn't going away. Now, obviously, we know with all the things that have happened since the Super Bowl, Brandon Ayuk's kind of contract situation is currently up in the air from the outside looking in. And of course, that is from a 49ers perspective and a lens. But there are multiple lenses to look through in a particular situation like this. And especially if we're talking trade, because that requires another team to inquire about Brandon Ayuk. And it seems that the Pittsburgh Steelers are not going away. They keep being linked to Brandon Aiyuk, and we can even go back and remember we heard from that radio host who said that the Steelers have been showing interest in Brandon Aiyuk, and that report was kind of swirling on social media, and that was the day where Brandon Aiyuk tweeted at Mike Tomlin and said, "Hey, twin, don't we kind of look alike?" Something along those lines, and that whole situation spun and spun and spun. And then, of course, over the weekend, we heard the reports that Brandon Aiyuk has officially requested a trade, in which his agent came out, knocked that down. But in a similar situation, is we keep hearing from Steelers people who are continuing to make connections between the Steelers wanting to go out and trade Brandon Ayuk. And I want to be abundantly clear that this is from the Steelers' perspective. This is nothing about the 49ers wanting or going to trade Ayuk. This is simply reading what Steelers people are saying and linking to sources. So when you look at this article was posted on the Steelers Sports Illustrated page. I believe it is by a writer named Noah Strackbean. So I did a little bit of digging into this, and a guy that I really trust who covers the Steelers knows Noah. He said, "Hey, if Noah says something, I trust it." And this is a guy who works for Sports Illustrated at CBS. My guy Jarrett, I know him well, and so I've got enough credibility in Jarrett that if he's saying, "Hey, if Noah says something, just pay attention to it," so I'm okay. All right, well, then let's pay attention to it and see what he's talking about. So Noah is continuing to say that the Steelers are looking to add a veteran wide receiver via trade. And he says that their sights appear set on 49ers Brandon Aiyuk. And so now uh, the primarily point of this article is to discuss the compensation to give up. We're not worried about that. At least I'm not. I'm more just trying to figure out like how real are these, let's call them allegations, that the Steelers are interested in Brandon Aiyuk. And so he goes on to say, according to a team source, the Steelers and 49ers trade talks are real. While nothing is imminent, they would be surprised if it didn't happen. But it all comes down to compensation, and Pittsburgh isn't willing to budge much on price. So the smoke is basically what we're trying to discern. Is this real or is this not? Now, we also understand that during this time, we get no named Joe Schmo saying they have sources, and we've already seen these types of reports get smashed down by agents and all those different types of things. But again, it keeps nagging us. It keeps coming back, and it keeps manifesting itself. And I think, in theory, if we are talking about a Brandon Aiyuk trade, one of the reasons why I don't believe Brandon Aiyuk will ultimately get traded is basically what this is saying that the Steelers aren't willing to budge much on price. And for the 49ers, well, why would they trade Brandon Aiyuk if they aren't getting a king's ransom or as close to a king's ransom as possible? BA's coming off a stellar season where he has solidified himself as the 49ers wide receiver one, just turned 26, second team All Pro, got snubbed from the Pro Bowl. Brandon Aiyuk is an ascending player in this league, and he is going to be better than any wide receiver that is selected at the 20th spot, which is where the Pittsburgh Steelers are drafting. So when we look at this whole situation, we're just trying to discern, like, is this interest with the Steelers real? Because we also heard from John Lynch at the owners' meetings where he said he spoke to Mike Tomlin and they were laughing about it, having a good old time. Like, hey, Mike, you know something that I don't know? And he kind of shot down any interest about a potential trade. But to be honest, I would never expect a general manager, head coach, or anyone to openly discuss potential roster moves, because one, the key word there is potential. Why would you put it out there if it doesn't happen? You have to kind of live with that. You have to kind of reel it back in, and that can create longer lasting questions and conversations and narratives that spin about it. It's best practice to not openly divulge potential roster moves. Like, that just doesn't make sense. Why would you share that information publicly? Because you shouldn't. You shouldn't. You should absolutely say what John Lynch said. You should say, "Oh, well, this is a non-story," um, but and those types of things. So, what we're trying to discern is, why do the Pittsburgh Steelers keep showing up in regards to being interested in the San Francisco 49ers. We understand they traded away Deontay Johnson. They only got Pickens. It's been discussed heavily in Steelers circles that they're absolutely looking to be aggressive in trading for a wide receiver. And now we're getting sourced information from Steelers writers that they are hot on the tracks of Brandon Aiyuk. Now, this doesn't mean at all that BA is going to get traded. It's just we're trying to identify this smoke, and the smoke continues to persist, that, or at least seems that the Pittsburgh Steelers are wanting to get Aiyuk. That doesn't mean the 49ers are going to give him to him. And at what cost? Because we also understand that the Steelers would have to pay Brandon Aiyuk, which kind of hurts the trade compensation that the 49ers could get in return. It kind of lowers the value of BA from a trade compensation standpoint. Doesn't lower the value of the player and what his impact is. It just lowers the compensation. So again, that's partly why I don't see Aiyuk getting traded, just simply for the fact that we have seen time and time again that the 49ers aren't going to move someone just to move them. We saw how long they kept on to Jimmy Garoppolo, regardless of, what kind of things transpired with him working off to the side, keeping him for an entire additional year when he was supposed to be out of here. The 49ers won't won't move off someone if the value isn't right. So the Pittsburgh Steelers could want Brandon Aiyuk all they want, but if the value isn't right, then a deal won't get done. And that's kind of what I've been projecting is the most likely outcome, is that a team, knowing that they have to pay BA, just aren't going to offer the 49ers something that they would accept. Same situation happened with Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel, the Jets offered them a trade package that required them to give pick 61 in that deal, and the 49ers said, no, that's not a good trade for us. And so they considered it, but like we said, King's ransom. It's got to be something that the 49ers benefit off of, because what benefit do they have trading one of the premier wide receivers in the league when they're trying to win a Super Bowl next year? It doesn't benefit them. So that's just, again, where I continue to remain on this subject. When speaking from the 49ers perspective, is that It does not make sense for them to move Brandon Ayuk for anything other than what would be considered a W in a trade compensation standpoint. They do not need to lose on a trade. They don't have to trade Brandon Ayuk. Now, if they get, like we've talked about, they get a deal that is good enough, that can change. But my assumption is that, and that's kind of what it feels like, we're getting some posturing, in the media and things like that, that, the 49ers are interested in taking a wide receiver at 31. Does that have any type of correlation to like the smoke of, I don't, the Steelers? I don't know. But we understand what time of the year it is. This stuff happens like clockwork when it comes to these types of conversations. And so all we're doing is we're making sure that we're tracking along the way. And we'll just wait and see what ultimately happens. But like I said, this is more of a perspective of just trying to identify, are the Steelers really that interested? Because they keep showing up. They keep they're continuing to be tied to these sourced reports. So is that a team that we got to watch out for? They do have their pick number 20. That plus more could be something that could potentially get a deal done. Does it? That remains to be seen. But what do you guys think about all this stuff? I know it's borderline annoying to continue to have to talk about this, but unfortunately, that's what we do here. We talk about things that pertain to the 49ers. And right now, one of the main things that pertain to the 49ers is this Brandon Ayuk situation, and who is really knocking down the door to try to get Brandon Ayuk away from the 49ers. Is it the Steelers? Is it another team? We'll have to find out. But just another interesting development in the Brandon Ayuk saga. Again, we're about almost a week away from the invisible deadline of the draft and that passing, and there being an opportunity where Brandon Ayuk is here to stay. But I do think this is a very crucial time, in that, like, this time leading up to the draft is very crucial in whether BA stays or BA goes. And I think we just have to be open minded to that. And so that's why we're just taking a peek. All right, Steelers clearly appear to be hot and heavy. There's a relationship there. So we just got to wait and see. Let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments below. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more updates.